Hi everybody, welcome to week 3 of English 160. So we're going to go over the Unit 2 module. So remember, you're continuing to work on your memo about your topic idea for your proposal based on what you did about audience in week 2. So remember, you did the discussion about audience, and then you also thought about your specific audience by filling out the audience profile sheet. So using that, continue to work on your proposal topic idea memo. Be sure to submit that by the end of this week. So let's just take a look at the schedule of activities to get started here. So we are now in week 3. Proposal topic memo, last thing for Unit 1, due Sunday, February 26th, but for the most part, we're going to be working on Unit 2, which is all about research. So looking at the chapter in technical communication, chapter 5, that's about research, and then some links in the module, how to generate keywords to search the library databases, the difference between scholarly journals and popular sources, and then how to use the EBSCOhost databases, which are available through the library if you click on the Research Resources tab and you click on Find Databases by Subject. That's what I'm talking about here, is using EBSCOhost. That's the search engine for most of those databases, or many of them. Okay, we've got a discussion this week, and then next week we'll finish up by looking at APA style and then inserting links in Word, another discussion about evaluating sources, and then you will submit your sources for your proposal, and then a full annotated bibliography or works cited for your proposal. Let's take a look at the module to get into a deeper dive of what that looks like. So if you go to Learning Content and Unit 2, so those are the links to all of the videos and outside readings that are not in the textbook. And then we have a couple of assignments that are due for Module 2 or Unit 2. So you're going to start by finding some sources for your proposal idea. All right, so we're continuing with that project that's going to carry us throughout the semester, a proposal for a place to go on vacation. So you've already thought of a topic, you've thought of where you want to go. Now you want to start thinking about the details. So how are you going to get there? Are you going to stay in a hotel, an Airbnb, with your family? Are you going to stay in a nice hotel or a cheap hotel? How are you going to get there? Are you going to fly? Are you going to drive? All kinds of things to consider. And also, what are you going to do when you get there? So lots of things to consider. So in order to consider those things, you got to find some sources. So you would use those sources later on in the project. You'll have your sources already ready to go and cited, so you don't have to do that later on when bigger parts of the project are due. So what do I want you to find? I want you to basically find anything that will help you answer those questions. Specifically, I want you to find 2 secondary sources from a newspaper, magazine, or trade publication. You are kind of looking at trade publications a little bit in your week 3 discussion, so we'll talk about that in just a moment here. 2 secondary sources that come from blogs, social media, etc. 3 primary sources that come from the websites of the businesses that you are evaluating. Let's talk about primary and secondary sources and how they're different for just a moment here. It talks about that in the chapter, but primary sources are sources where there's no analysis. You're just looking at it unfiltered. So that could be like if you're studying history, a diary, or like some census data or something like that. If you're doing a project like this one, if you're going to Disney World's website to find out how much tickets are, that's a primary source. You don't have anybody filtering it for you. Secondary sources do have that filter. It's got people's analysis, their opinion. So if I go to Disney Food Blog to learn more about Disney, then that's a secondary source because it's the person who wrote its opinions and analysis on those facts that come from places like Disney World's website. So 2 secondary sources from a newspaper or magazine, 2 secondary sources that can come from blogs, social media, etc. So that's things like YouTube channels, personal websites, things that aren't things like the New York Times or Time Magazine. And then 3 primary sources that come from the websites like Spirit Airlines or Frontier Airlines, like Disney World, like Carnival Cruises, whatever businesses you're considering patronizing for this vacation. Okay, so step 1 is just finding those sources. Present your findings in a document. You can just provide links, but you're encouraged to use APA if you want to get practicing on using APA early. For each source, provide a sentence or 2 explaining how it fits within your proposal. So step 1 is just finding the sources and showing me that you found the right kinds of sources for the project. And then later on, you will turn in a full works cited in APA with a paragraph or 2 for each citation or reference that evaluates the source and summarizes the source. If you're not quite sure, this is basically an annotated bibliography. There's a link in here I did not include it on the schedule, but there's a link in here that talks about what an annotated bibliography is, and that's basically what I'm asking you to do. A bibliography of sources that are cited correctly in the citation style, followed by a little follow-up paragraph or two that summarizes and evaluates the source. Okay, so that is the Dropbox or process work for the Unit 2 module. Let's take a look at the discussions as well while we're here. So one of them is about journals and trade publications. So what you're going to do is you're going to think about what you want to do when you graduate. What kind of career do you want? Try to have as a specific idea as possible. You can do that by going to the Ferguson's Career Reference Center that's in the library databases. So you're going to do that. Once you have a kind of good idea of what you want to do, you're going to look for a professional organization in your field of study, in your major basically. So the best way to do that is to just Google professional organizations for whatever career you want to do. Defense lawyer, for example, professional organizations for defense lawyers. You know, the American Bar Association is one of the biggest professional organizations in the country for lawyers. But if you're more specifically a defense attorney, there might be separate professional organizations specifically for defense attorneys in that particular subfield of the law. But Google professional organizations in your field of study. There's also a good list of them here. If you're in one of the career areas, one of the trades areas, there's a list of them through the library LibGuides as well. But if you need help finding a professional organization, you can just send me an email. How do I know that I've got a professional organization in front of me? It's going to have those things in the bullet points. So it's clearly an organization that's dedicated to helping professionals in that field to help educate them, but it's not like a education program like at a college. It's to help educate them about professional development. It's to help them. It's to help represent them in their interests and that kind of thing. Opportunity to join. If you see a link to join and pay to be a member, then that's probably a professional organization. If they have publications like journals or a trade magazine, newsletters, position statements, etc., that's probably a professional organization. A conference opportunity. There's a conference. They can travel to the conference and attend the sessions or present if they want to. Tools for networking with other professionals like discussion boards, member directories, etc. So if it's got all those things, it's probably a professional organization. And again, you can follow this link to the library, and even if your career field isn't on that set of links, you can get an idea of what the websites of professional organizations look like. So once you find a professional organization, I want you to look at their journal or their trade magazine. So that's basically a publication that they put out that is either talking about research in their field or talking about issues in their field. So when it comes to the trade publications, it's going to be things like issues and things that people should be aware of. When it comes to more academic fields, it's going to be academic research that advances knowledge in the field. Find one or the other that's published by that particular professional organization. Find out a little bit about it. Google it. Learn about its publishers, its editors, its mission, its audience, etc. Do this for a couple of different journals maybe. What you're going to do lastly is you're going to go to the Wakelet. You're going to post a link to a journal or trade publication that is in your field of study and provide a few sentences that explain or summarize it for the rest of the class. Wakelets don't let you do replies. I wish they did. So because of that, y'all don't have to reply to anybody else's Wakelet posting this week, and you have up until the Sunday that the discussion closes to do this. The other discussion. So in week 4, when you start finding sources for your proposal, I want you to choose one of the secondary sources. Remember what a secondary source is. One of the secondary sources, and in the post, explain the author's credential, affiliations, why the article was published, and when and where it is published. So basically practicing for your annotated bibliography that you'll turn in at the end of the unit. So those are the discussions. I hope I've covered everything decently well. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me by email or ask for an office hours appointment. But I look forward to seeing y'all's work in this unit.